Welcome to the Hidden History series. In today's video we will discuss a phenomena from the supernatural realms that exist all around us. We have poltergeists, ghosts, spirits, entities, demonic possession, angels and lots of other bizarre encounters. Therefore, it's not by chance that over 50% of human beings on planet Earth have encountered some sort of paranormal activity. Paranormal encounters seem to activate immense fear in humans, where many individuals become frightened once emotionally sense there is an invisible presence. They hear strange noises or something visually disturbing happens. Most people see dark and light as good versus evil, the polar opposites. Even though this is not the case, we are taught that these forces oppose each other, when actually they are just ways to get a perspective on a situation. In the movies, the filmmakers exemplified the darkness as the bad monster, the demon, and the light as the angels, the bringers of hope. Hence, the dualism of good and evil are conveyed. We live in a world with a multitude of dimensions. Yes, this 3D holographic reality is very real and we operate within it. But we have crossovers from other dimensions that are unexplainable and defy scientific understanding. I have had many of my own personal experiences which I will discuss later, but when we understand how this other frequency operates within this material dimension, we will understand how it has become distorted and how we can use it to enhance a better way of life for ourselves. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Let's understand what angels and the representation of Satan are. When we look at this concept from a religious perspective, the angels have always been perceived as trans-dimensional spirit entities who, according to the Abrahamic religions, are the sacred envoys of the universal creator. The angels are said to reside in the heavenly kingdom and observe the affairs of human beings on planet Earth. The three Abrahamic religions often depict angels as celestial beings speaking between the creator and the heavenly kingdom and to the human beings. Angels are the protectors and guides for humans and function as the superluminal assistants of the creator. Some angels have specific names such as Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Ariel, or titles such as Seraphim or the Fiery Ones or the Archangels. Within the Abrahamic religions, these are the angels that have been expelled from the heavenly kingdom who are called the fallen angels and are entirely distinct from the heavenly host. The supreme leader of the fallen angels is called Lucifer, the light bearer. The ancient Greek word daemon denotes a spirit or inverted divine power, much like the Latin word genius. Now, it is interesting how the Greek language term does not translate this meaning of the demon into evil or darkness. At the time of the early Roman Empire, cult statues of these astral deities became iconic and began to represent the forces of good and evil. Religion became the dominant authority because it was used as a way to control society, as the leaders could manipulate and distort the thoughts of the Roman citizens. In ancient history, the populaces then followed their leaders and revered them as gods, and this is how the inverted programming of religion began. Maybe this was the birth of duality. The pagans and the European Christians perceived these astral deities as healers, but these astral deities may have been dimensional tricksters who were really demons in disguise that just wanted to deceive the minds of humans. The famous English occultist and ceremonial magician known as Aleister Crowley apparently summoned a demon during a sexual ritual that he performed. Additionally, it was well known that Aleister Crowley summoned demons next to Loch Ness in northern Scotland. Aleister Crowley was consistently involved with using ceremonial magic in Boleskine House, which is located nearby to Loch Ness, to summon various demons from the lower astral and infernal regions between February 1899 and October 1913. Boleskine House became very haunted as Aleister Crowley had opened up dimensional portals with his ceremonial magic. The summoned demons would make loud, disturbing noises, moving furniture around and rolling up carpets. During the nighttime, certain demons would attack any occupants that were residing in the property. The spook or ghost is the spirit of a dead human being or a bird or a mammal that can appear to the living. The descriptions of ghosts vary widely from invisible presence to translucent or barely visible wispy shapes to realistic life forms. The deliberate attempt to contact the spirit of a deceased person is known as necromancy, or in spiritism as a séance, which is in French language word for seated session. I have felt ghosts and spirits as presences, but I have never seen a ghost. Most commonly, people will just see an imprint of a specific time in history, which usually centres on the death of the human who then became a ghost. There have been some very extreme cases of poltergeists that actually physically attacked individuals and sometimes even sexually assaulted them. The movie called The Entity, directed by Sidney Joseph Fury in 1982, is based around the true story of Doris Beaver. Doris was a single mother that was raising 4 children. Doris had moved from Santa Monica during October 1974 into a dilapidated house in Braddock Drive, Culver City in Los Angeles County, California. Over a long period of time, Doris was constantly abused physically and sexually by this entity. Because Doris was desperate for a solution, she agrees to participate in an elaborate scientific experiment. A full mock-up of her own home is created to lure the entity into a trap and freeze it with liquid helium. This sounds crazy, but this apparently happened. According to journals, the moment Doris Beaver moved into the property, an elderly Mexican woman knocked on the door and warned Doris that the house was evil. Brian, the son of Doris Beaver, said that his mother started experimenting with a Ouija board and held seances or seated sessions in her early years, and then started to mix this activity with drugs and alcohol. The use of the Ouija board by Doris may have opened up some kind of dimensional portal, but the entity may have already been there, just as the Mexican lady had described. The word poltergeist originates from the German language and means rumbling spirit or noisy spirit. Another kind of spirit are the orbs, which are arguably one of the most common astral spirits around and are often cited at the presence of something paranormal. The unusual shadow people are interesting kind of ghosts. They are often shaped like a human being but do not have any facial features. There are so many types of ghosts, but these all exist on the same frequency. What is that frequency? I have had many of my own personal experiences when I felt like my grandmother visited me once, back in 1999. I was close to my grandmother just as she was with all her grandchildren. She was a nurturing and a very mothering energy, and she always wanted to see that we were okay, and my grandmother always loved to have a conversation about what we were doing. After she died, I visited my grandpa in South Sea, United Kingdom. I arrived at the house for the first time after my grandmother was no longer physically present. It seemed strange as my grandpa was no different. We went to sleep that night after grandpa had made one of his exquisite banquets at around 11:30 p.m. It was a chilly summer's evening. I lay there having trouble sleeping and the window was open. After an hour, I started to hear a coughing sound coming from downstairs. That sounded like a noise my grandmother used to make, as I remember that particular tone. I sat up and I listened to a cough. Then I knew this wasn't a dream. The coughing continued to come downstairs every few seconds. I could hear my grandpa snoring in the other room, so these were 2 distinct sounds. I then got up and I did not feel scared. Instead, I felt curious as the coughing sound was the same as my grandmother's, even though she was no longer physically there. So I crept downstairs until I reached the hallway and then it stopped. I walked around in the dark and obviously there was no one there. After this, I walked back up the stairs thinking that it was just my imagination, but as I was going back, I looked to the top of the stairs and observed a red-blue ectoplasm type of energy floating in the dark. Again, I did not feel frightened, and I knew that energies were just a presence. It moved away, and I then continued to walk up the stairs and into my bedroom. I entered the room and I lay on the bed. After 5 minutes, a wind started to pick up outside and a picture frame fell off the wall. The picture frames were all on the opposite wall to the window, so the wind could not have caused this to happen. And then another picture frame fell off the wall. And then another, and on this one the glass actually smashed. I felt a bit freaked out at this stage, so I turned the light on and just sat there. Then the wind picked up outside and a whoosh came into the room and then left. After this happened, everything was still in the room. I went to bed and awoke the next day. Whilst I was walking around Southsea Town Centre that day, I started to see colours around people's heads. This lasted maybe for 2 days. However, even to this day, I can see colours and what people call auras, which appear as colours usually over the heads of certain individuals on the crown part of the head. I returned to London in a kind of amazement to what had happened. Not long after this happened, I had turned 18 years old and I was living in Highgate, North London at the time. One evening, me and a friend went to Highgate Woods and we made a campfire. We played guitar and chatted. After a couple of hours, it started getting cold, so we decided to pack up. The fire was nearly out, but I thought I would go to the toilet and put it out. Just as I went to do this, I looked at the fire and the embers had formed into a small skeletal corpse. This freaked us out, as the skeletal corpse appeared to be a 2-foot skeleton on the fire that clearly displayed a ribcage, a skull, arms, hands, legs, feet. It was most certainly a skeleton and we weren't hallucinating. We ran for our lives. After this happened, I looked into the history of this area. It goes back to the Romans and was probably inhabited by the Celtic tribes and the Druids long before that. Also, the location of Highgate Woods was used as a burial ground during the bubonic plague. I lived in Highgate at the time and the house was haunted. One night in particular, I experienced my duvet cover being pulled off and a voice that kept talking in my ear, but nothing seemed to be there. Strange noises regularly heard throughout the night and taps would turn on by themselves. So what was happening during these paranormal events in this property? There was some presence that kept coming into the frequencies and vibrations around me, and it seemed to want to invite me in by opening up dimensional doorways and asking me if I wanted to look. I experienced the highest amount of paranormal activity between the 15 and 20. These stories and many other situations have ignited my passion to explore the other worlds that are all around us if we choose to tap into them. These are all on different frequencies and we attune to them with our own vibrations. In my opinion, poltergeist, ghosts, negative spirits, entities, demonic possession, angels and many other kinds of paranormal phenomena are an important part of this 3D holographic reality. Are dimensional tricksters pulling you into the darker frequencies in which they can manipulate the human psyche. They can only attach to the lower vibrations such as depression, addictions, trauma and low emotional states. But if these are dealt with, our vibrations cannot match. Many societies on planet Earth are consistently pulled into the lower vibrations on a daily basis with porn, the mainstream media and entertainment. People do not realise they are following inverted programming, where the distortions put a spell on the human mind. That is something for a whole other episode. Various kinds of paranormal phenomena most certainly exist, but we have a much higher vibration that we can attune to by using a brighter and a more expansive human consciousness, which therefore involves everyone. Thank you for watching everyone, and please leave your comments, like, share and subscribe if you haven't already.